What's up, YouTube? Here at Lloyd Lake in Golden Gate Park, hanging out with Benjamin, feeding some ducks, right, buddy? Before we jump into this session, I want to remind everyone once again that we have a meetup game coming February 8th. And if you can, please go to pokermeetups.com, register for the game, put yourself on the list. It's going to be a ton of fun. 3-3 no limit with myself, P's and Q's poker vlog, Andrew Locke, and Just Christy B. Benjamin, he's obsessed with the ducks. Anyway, we hope to see you guys there. Now let's jump into the action. What's up, YouTube? Back at it again, driving home after a short-lived PLO session where I got a bit murdered. But that's not going to be the topic of this video. Instead, I'm going to be highlighting the no-limit session that I played earlier this morning. Maybe we'll get into a couple of the PLO hands that I played as well. But anyway, so I went in this morning. My mom is visiting and helping with watching the kids, which lets me kind of go and play during the day. She just arrived here last week, so today was kind of my first day of going in early. I get in, and the game is kind of filled with regs, which is obviously not great. Generally speaking, it's a lot of the same players anyway, but these were kind of less of the bad ones. And so I'm going to be trying to play relatively snug. We are playing 3-5 with a $10 straddle. Everyone is straddling. So at least we're playing a little bigger than usual, as opposed to it being kind of a nittier game and just playing with two blinds. So I kind of been pretty inactive. Not much is going on, maybe for like 2 or 3 orbits. And then there is a limp under the gun. Now a relatively tight player makes a 25. He is capable of some moves, but basically he is like a 70-year-old Asian man, just kind of quiet, plays like relatively tight, like I said, but you know, he's capable of some things. So he makes a 25. And when he opens 25, I think this is just like a hand that he wants to play and not necessarily like a nutty hand. There will be some, I think, mixes here of like having aces or kings that are trying to like trap and, you know, make it look like they don't have a big hand. But I'm going to find that out, I think, pretty quickly. It folds to me on the button, and I have Jack 9 of hearts. And I like to 3-bet, A, to take the aggressive action away, B, to try to get it heads up, and C, you know, just to kind of attack what I think is his like middling range, because I just don't think he has that strong of a hand. I think his most likely candidates are going to be some suited connectors, some medium pocket pairs, things like that. So it folds back to him. The under the gun limper folds, and he calls. The flop comes 9-7-5 with 2 diamonds and a heart, so I flop top pair, backdoor heart draw. He checks. And this is obviously a board on which he's going to flop range advantage. When he opens, you know, it doesn't necessarily hit his opening range that heavily, but I think when he opens like relatively small, this is just a much better flop for him than it is for me. I'm just never going to really have any of the sets here. It's unlikely that I'm going to be 3-betting like 9s. Clearly, I don't think I'm going to be 3-betting 7s or 5s, so really 9s are about the only hand that I think I would be 3-betting here possibly, and that's infrequent. So generally speaking, this would be a hand that, or a board that I'd want to be checking back to pot control. The thing is that flopping top pair here, you know, I want to be protecting my equity. It's a situation in which if I check back, there's going to be a lot of turns where I just don't really know where I'm at. Really, anything that's not exactly a jack or a 9 is going to be hard to play. The queen, king, ace are obviously going to be better cards for my range, but I think if he now leads those, kind of in like no man's land. So I like to bet to just kind of narrow down his range and mostly just protect my equity. I think he's going to have, like I said, a lot of hands like king queen suited, queen 10 suited, queen jack suited, ace 10 suited, ace jack suited, just all of the suited Broadway holdings. And I want to be kind of clearing that up and just taking the pot down here where he's still going to have a ton of equity if I check it back. So I bet 110, and now he kind of goes into the tank for a bit and looks like he's thinking about raising. When I think he's thinking about raising here, my immediate reaction is I think he's weighted towards flop diamond draws, that he, you know, opens some suited connector and flops the diamond draw. I do have a 9 in my hand, so I blocked the set of 9s, so really the only strong value hands he could have are sets of 7s and 5s, and I'm not really sure that he's going to open those after there's a limp under the gun. Anyway, when he reaches for chips, he ends up just calling. So obviously I'm happier about that, because if I face a check raise here, it's going to be put me in a pretty tough spot. The turn is now in offsuit 8, obviously a pretty bad card. A for my range and B for my hand. I can't really be betting this card ever. he ends up checking, which is great for me because I think if he bets his turn, it's going to put me in a tough spot. I think he ought to be double barreling this turn just a ton with really any of his hands because I'm just going to have a tough time calling this turn and then a river bet if he decides to double barrel. Anyway, he balks, kind of goes to like act like he's going to bet and checks. I have a clear check back here. Obviously, I'm hoping to drill a 10 for a straight or that the river goes check, check. The river is now the 4 of clubs, so the front door flush draw misses. Obviously I still lose to, I think it's a 6 that makes a straight. I lose to the jack 10s, which would be a gut shot. And a lot of the 2 pair combos. Now at this point, he kind of immediately grabs big chips at the top of his stack, which were over $400. And I'm just like, whoa, is he really gonna be betting that large? He kind of grabs it, thinks for a bit, and ends up betting it. It's all of his large chips, which are 4 $100 chips and 3 $20 chips. So it's a $460 bet. And I'm just like, obviously not a bet I want to be facing. My immediate reaction is like, okay, theoretically, I just don't have any hands here that I can call, right? Like, best case scenario, I have a set here, and I'm just not gonna have that many sets here. So really, what can I call with? So I want, it's like a stupid bet. So my immediate reaction is like, okay, like it looks bluffy, right? I can't really be calling this bet, and if I can't really be calling this bet, then it's not a very good value bet, and thus he should be bluffing for that sizing. That said, I'm a strong believer that oftentimes when I do face these spots, and I do make the call where I'm just like, oh, like that sizing should be a bluff because I can't have that great of a hand. They just end up having it. Like they just have like the nuts. He has like jack 10 suited or some nonsense, and he's like hoping that I somehow have like a set and I'm going to pay him off. In reality, I think his bet should be something more in that half pot to 3/4 range for value. So like I said, sizing wise and theory wise, I want to call because I think that it should be a bluffy bet. But I just feel like so often these spots, they just end up having it because people really honestly don't bluff that much in these spots. Another thing that kind of weights me towards wanting to call is that when he bet this river and he kind of grabbed the big chips, kind of is like he's giving off these like strong tells, or rather that he's strong, which generally speaking is the opposite, right? If people want to act strong, they're generally going to be weak. And when he bet it, it was a forceful, quick bet. Like, oh yeah, like boom, like, I'm betting large. And again, another instance of when people bet strongly, they generally are the opposite, weak. Rather, when, they're betting weak and timid and they're like, oh, like I bet, or I'm acting scared, they just have the nuts. Anyway, so my question to you is, post down below in the comment section, what would you do in this spot? What do you think his most likely hand range is? And facing essentially an over pot size bet, slightly over pot, not like significantly over pot, but over pot a little bit. What would you do? I think it's a pretty tough spot. Obviously we're theoretically another aspect to think about. I think is here having the jack. We block the nuts. I'm not entirely sure how much that plays into effect because. Really, like I shouldn't have too many 6s. The only other straights would be 10-6 or jack 10. So it's not a situation where there's like a 4-card straight by having a 10. Right, because a 10 would just be 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4. So that wouldn't make a straight. Obviously, having jack 9 of hearts is better because now I don't block any of his possible diamond draws. For example, if I had like jack 9 offsuit and I have the jack of diamonds, I'm blocking some of his potential bluffs. But having jack 9 of hearts here, I think, I don't block any of his potential bluffs of like ace 10 of diamonds, queen 10 of diamonds, king 10 of diamonds, king jack of diamonds, king queen of diamonds, ace queen of diamonds, all of these hands that would theoretically be wanting to check raise the flop, which is what it looked like he might have wanted to do. So yeah, if you can, comment down below, let me know what you think. In the end, my reaction was just sort of like, I think he's a smart guy. I think this wouldn't be a bet he'd be placing with a value hand. And so I was just leaning towards the call, despite, feeling like oftentimes when I do make these like hero calls on the river, people just have it. I make the call, and thankfully for us, we hear the good news. He says, well, if you call, you must have the winner, or something to that effect. And he mucks. So we scooped this pot, which was nice because the game just wasn't playing that great in my opinion. I played probably for another about hour. Just decided that it's just not that great of a game. I decided to pack it in and book about a $500 winner. Regarding the PLO session that I finished right now, I got a message. There's a little group chat of people that like playing PLO, maybe about 10 of us, to let each other know when it's starting. It seemed kind of shorthanded and felt a little bit forced, which I think, generally speaking, when it feels like it's a bunch of regs trying to force the action, I probably shouldn't just rush in to go play, especially at night when I don't necessarily need to play. But anyway, I went in and the game wasn't that great. It was a bunch of competent players, trying to make good hands. I did run into kind of one dirty spot early where I opened, I think, King, Queen, Jack, 10, one suit or double suit. I think it was one suit. Or maybe it was King, Queen, Jack, 10, King, Queen, 10, 9. It was King, Queen, 10, 9, one suit. Get 3-bet, and I call in position. I think it's quite likely that he's going to have aces. Most of the time when people are 3-betting in these games, it's almost exclusively aces, unless it's like some of the other specific players who are 3-betting a little lighter. Anyway, so I call in position. The flop comes 10-7 high, like 10-7-4, rainbow, so I flop top pair. I think all of my kickers are hopefully live, and he bets about 3/4 pot. I call in position. The turn is a 6, putting the 9-8 straight. He checks, and now I decide to turn my hand into a bluff. I do have the straight blocker. I think he's just most likely going to have aces here, and he's not going to be able to call double barrel. He checks, and I bet 200, setting up. I think he had about 400 left, setting up a river $400 bluff to double barrel. I think if I bet any larger here, he might end up heroing off on the river. Maybe I could bet a little bit smaller on the turn to set up a larger river bluff. Anyway, he check calls, and the river's an ace, which is obviously just the worst card in the deck, because I think when he calls his turn, he's most likely going to have aces. Like, it seems less likely that he's going to have aces if, the river is an ace, but that was just kind of my read of the situation. Obviously, you could have some different hands here, like some wrapped blockers, like maybe he has like Queen, Jack, 10, 9 himself, something like that. But given that what I have exactly in my hand, I think it's quite unlikely. My read of the situation was that he had aces, especially when the river peeled off. He kind of like paused for a bit, looked like he felt like he should be betting, but knew that like he really can't get called by worse because there obviously is a straight there. He checks, and obviously barring this being the worst card in the deck in my opinion, other than the fact like if I make 2 pair, I can now value bet it. But also the fact that I think it hits his likely sets of aces. I decided to check it back, and sure enough, he announces a set of aces. So that was kind of an annoying one to lose, because I lose like 400 there, and that was what I was stuck for majority of the night, like 400 or 500. I then lose a little bit more to get stuck 800. I get in a couple of situations where I flop. One specific situation where I open King, Jack, 10, 3, I think on the button. We're 5-handed at this point, double suited. King, Jack, 10, 3, double suited. I may be in the cutoff. The button calls, one of the more competent players in the game. And flop ends up coming Queen 9, maybe like deuce, or Queen 9, 3 with my suit. So I flop a wrap, maybe bottom pair, and a 10-eye flush draw. 4-handed at this point. I think we ended up going 4 ways to the flop. Obviously, like, it's a good flop for my hand in theory. But if a bunch of money is going to start going in, it's not that great, because I could be getting free roll by some similar hands, right? Like 3 ways, it could be someone having the same wrap and somebody having a better flush draw. So I bet 50 into 80. The button pots it to 215. The other 2 players fold. It's kind of a gross spot for me. I want to fold because I think it's just not that great of a situation. Where really I just hope that he has like a top set of aces. Top set of queens. Now all my outs are live, but being out of position, it's kind of a gross spot. I like to call, and I think if the turn is a spade and I check and he bets, I might just fold here with my 10-eye flush. I just think that if the turn's a spade and I check, it's going to go check quite often, and then I could probably just barrel the river for like half pot. If I get raised, he's just always going to have it, in my opinion. Anyway, I decided to call 165 extra. The river is the turn is a brick. It's like an offsuit 4 or something like that. Like nothing gets there. I check and he full pots it for like whatever 500 and whatever it is. 550 or something like that. And being out of position at this point, I like to just fold. I could be in a really bad spot where he just has a better flush draw than me, like 2 pair, something like that, 2 pair and a better flush draw. So I think I have to fold at this point. So I lose that pot as well. I lose 200 there. I get myself stuck to about 800. Then I play another pot where I open ace 5, 10, 9, or maybe I call a raise with ace 5 of hearts, 10, 9 offsuit. Flop, yeah, sorry, I call a raise with ace 5 of hearts, 10, 9 offsuit. We go 4 ways to a flop, which comes 10, 9 deuce with 2 hearts. So I flop top 2 and hearts. I like to just donk into the pre-flop opener. I actually don't remember exactly who the opener was. I bet 45 into 80, kind of looking to bet 3-bet. You know, I think I'm going to get action from a lot worse hands. I could obviously check and look to check raise and get it in. Maybe that's a significantly better play. But anyway, so I bet 45 and get 2 calls. The turn's the offsuit deuce, which is kind of obviously one of the worst turns because now I get counterfeited. All the overpairs have me beat. And I just kind of have a reduced live hand. Because I think that 10-9 here is often going to be the best hand. But instead now I get counterfeited in a raise pot. One of the callers from the small blind checks. I check, having the top 2 blockers. I think I could be just betting here again, but I had found a situation earlier on where I had double barreled here when I got counterfeited with top 2 and got folds from both spots. So I just decided not to do it in this spot. Now the player to my left, who might have been the pre-flop opener, bets like 105 into about 190, 135 into about 230. The player in the small blind folds. I think this is just too nitty of a fold to be check folding here, even though obviously now my hand just doesn't play that well. I think I just have blockers to too many of the good hands. So I check call the 105. The river is an offsuit queen. I check, now he bets like 265. Obviously I have blockers to a bunch of the good hands, but there's not too many hands I could think of that would be bluffing in this spot that I beat, except maybe exactly like bottom wraps, like 6, 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's just not many hands I can really think of. You know, is he value betting aces or kings here thinly? I don't know him that well. Maybe. It's just a spot I don't think I can call with the top 2. I don't beat that many hands in my opinion 3 ways here. I feel like he could be bluffing some of the time, but I find a fold. Afterwards, I actually talked to him about a bunch of the hands that I played with him, and he told me he had 10-9-9 for, you know, the second set. So obviously, if we had gotten in on the flop, we could have ran it twice. But I was obviously losing the first one when he makes the boat. So I was in pretty not great shape, obviously, with top 2 here in a spot where you think you're in great shape. So I lost that one as well. So yeah, just nothing was really going for me. A lot of situations where like I flop a lot of equity and lose. I did have one nice spot against this guy. This guy kind of owned me all night. He did tell me that he had it pretty much every single time. There was another spot where I opened 4, 5, 6, 7 on the button. He calls, flop comes like 5, 5, 9 or 5, 5, 5, 5 jack. He check calls flop, turns at 10. He checks again. There's a flush on the flop. I elect to double barrel because I think this is the spot I'm going to be getting the value from. I bet 70 and he check raises to 220. Just people don't bluff these spots. They're just severely under bluffed. I don't beat like any 5s. I think he could have ace 5. He could obviously have pocket jacks. His raise size is small, and I think when his raise size is small, it's quite likely that he could have pocket jacks, maybe even pocket 10s. I like to fold. He told me that I told him like show a bluff. This would be a good spot. He chose ace queen of diamonds, which would have been the nut flush draw. You know, that just for nut flush draw. He told me later on that he had 10-5 for flopping the trips and turning the boat. I believe him. So yeah, he just kind of owned me. Just had it like every single time, or at least all the big pots I played against him, assuming that he's telling the truth, and I do believe him. The one fun spot I did play against him, I opened king jack of hearts, king jack. I think I opened like king jack deuce 3, king jack of hearts, a deuce 3 of spades, something like that. Obviously a very loose open. Four-handed at this point. He calls, maybe the other 2 players call. We go 3 or 4 ways to a flop. I think 4 ways to a flop, which comes queen 10-9 of hearts. Yeah, we flopped the king eye straight flush. Just check. I decided to check. Obviously, I just have too much of this. If somebody has like the nut flush, you know, it's gonna suck if I check and the turn pairs the board and I lose some outs. But anyway, I decided to check. player behind checks, turns a queen. Obviously a great card because now I can get action from some boats. I think it goes check, check again, or one check to me. I bet 35 into I think 80. Player to my left calls, the guy that's been kind of owning me all night. The river is a brick, so not changing the board. There are obviously quad queens and queen 10, queen 9 for the boats. River, I think, turn might have been a 5. Oh, sorry. I think it came queen 10, 9. River's a 5. And so I bet 50. Kind of trying to get raised. He's even raising me a lot. And obviously, I think he's going to have a lot of the boats here. When he calls the turn, I think he obviously could have enough flush. Sometimes it's trapping, and more likely some of the boats. And I think he should be raising his boats, especially when I bet small twice. So I bet 50, and he makes it 220. At this point, I'm just praying that he has exactly queen 10 for the top boat. Maybe even queens for quads. So I make it 700. Maybe I should make it even a little bit larger, but I thought that'd be a little too greedy. He thinks for a bit and folds. Once again, when we discussed the hands later on, he told me he folded queen 5. So obviously that would have been the rivered boat because it came queen 10, 9, queen 5. So yeah, a situation where he just kind of has to fold because it's just severely under bluffed. Like I'm just never going to be bluffing that spot when I bet, get raised. I'd have to be having just a complete suicidal bluff with like maybe a queen and the jack of hearts in my hand, or a queen and a king in my hand, or the king of hearts in my hand for the straight flush blockers. Anyway, so I lost 1,300 in PLO. Womp womp. Not a fun time. But otherwise, I've been on a massive heater as of late. Things have been going really well. I think I've just been winning every day. So other than technically losing 800 between the 2 sessions today, things have been going great. So that is all for now. Once again, I want to reiterate, we have that meetup game coming February 8th, where we'll be playing 3-3 no limit with a $500 cap. It's going to be a ton of fun. Me and the other 3 vloggers, P's and Q's Poker, Just Christy B, and Andrew Locke. It's going to be a great time. So put yourself on that list on pokermeetups.com, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, guys. Catch you later.